But what really, interests me from your studio is this, like focus on the aesthetics and the visual, like that very, little studios have nowadays. And I wanted to tell us a little bit more about how you come up with that relation, like because when you enter to your website, it's not a usual website, like it's not something you're used to see, it's something like, oh my God, this is something very, like unique in the thing that I see or the thing that I experience as well. And how was that, how was that change into, like testing into a more advanced systems with visuals as well?
I think it's maybe worth at this point mention a little bit about the name and where it comes from.
And that'll be great. One of the things that I wanted to also mention to the audience that are here with a field is that like this is first studios that have been experimenting with different technologies and different methodologies and approach of design as well. It's not. It's interesting to see that their approach is also related to graphic design. Like a lot of their way they relate and how people experience the technology. And that's something that I really love about the studio, and that's something how it's been very unique in the type of work that they do. So you got it?
Cool. Yeah. Now I'm getting to that quintessential slide. I mean, basically, I think for me, it was a long process of discovery, of really following your intuitions. Because basically, when I started, and that was now 14 years ago, there was only a very, very small creative coding scene. Everything was much more simple, way less advanced. Certain techniques like camera tracking was a little bit like knowing magic. There were only 5 people in the world that knew how to do camera tracking really well, and maybe only 2 that did it properly in this interactive space, for example. So it was a very, very small underground community, I guess. And initially, I had no clue that it even exists. So my background essentially is I either wanted to be a painter or a graphic designer, and then I did a lot of skateboarding. And somehow these 3 ingredients, they came together. I think as a graphic designer, I guess, when you're a student, you try to think about, okay, what is my style? What new thing am I going to bring into this world? And I think it's a really important question to think about, but it can also be quite frustrating, I guess, because at some point you look at everything that's before you and you say, well, look at all these amazing things. How can I possibly add something? And to me, it was that, for example, graphic design, that in itself, no one needs another font. I mean, yes, if you have that particular ingredient, you can make something really amazing. I'm not discrediting anything, but I realized that maybe that's not my way to add something new. So what I started kind of is at some point getting a little bit distracted and venturing out into sort of adjacent fields, like other areas that were really interesting to me, like computer vision or interactivity and sound and artificial life. Like there was like a lot of cool stuff going on, and you might have a little video. One thing I have prepared. There you go. Maybe this can play in the background. So things like this, they are like computer science research experiments from the 80s. This particular one is about genetic algorithms, how you can basically evolve things that look like creatures from nature, from just a simple formula of you have a number of different limbs, you have a genetic code that defines how this animal is like created and how it moves, and you measure how far can it move in 30 seconds. And then you just let the simulation run a million times, and you change. If you go a little bit further, you change it, and so the simulation kind of gets optimized, and over time, it generates amazing things that have a life that no animator, no designer, no one would think of this, right? It would be too much work. It would be you wouldn't have some stupid ideas. And in the end, uh, even though it's just code, it comes back with something like lifelike and humane. That is, I think, incredibly fascinating. So I think
What year? What year did you mention that these early studies were made?
I mean, I think this example is maybe 83. Maybe I'm getting, I probably should look this up properly. I think it's not 83. Don't want to say anything wrong, but it's, I think in the 90s or something. It's really early days.
It's funny because it reminds me. Recently, I was watching this kind of like a new AI from NVIDIA in the video games, and this how it looks. What all the creatures while they're learning how to do stuff right. Like they're just like very sloppy, and they just run this AI, and like after a few minutes, and after some days, and after a month, and after they became really smart. And it's incredible, and I can see these type of creatures as well. Your work in all the you guys have been working the past years, right?
So if I jump back to my other slide, if that works, there we go. So basically, this slide here is kind of the cover page from my master's thesis. Oh, hey Martin, that we wrote. It's in German, and basically this. What I realized is that, hey, okay, I'm in love with design and visual arts. That's my center. That's here at the center. But there's all these other really exciting influences. And if you like interactivity and life and generative design, and basically anywhere in between those ingredients, there's a lot of space to discover new ideas and some real potential for some real amazing stuff. So I think we essentially drew this map, and because it's a two-dimensional area, we call it field, and essentially the studio, that's the name, and it's dedicated to exploring these ingredients and how they can be relevant for design.
So when you were like making this studio, so is it was just by yourself, and it was like you and some other friends, and how like, and how many people is now in the studio?
Originally I finished it with my partner at the time, Vera Maria Glan, who's co-founder of the studio. We went to London together, and like for the first 5-6 years or so of the studio, it was just two of us. We were literally starting in kind of a bedroom or a living room here in London Fields, and then moved to a shared office. And I actually didn't want to start a studio. It wasn't really my intention. Like I literally just wanted to be a designer and create amazing things. And I think the studio kind of came a bit later when you realized, well, like I like to design the entire experience. And I think maybe my initial focus was like I was very code and like generative orientated, but you then realize, you look at projects when they finish and you think, I wish we also did the sound. I wish we also did, had more control of things. And that's how you slowly move towards building a bigger team around you, because ideas are becoming more ambitious as well. And that's the foundations, I think, of the studio.
And how many people are in the studio right now?
I think at the moment we're 25, around 25 full-time, and there's usually a good amount of freelancers around. So I'd say between 25, 35. And we're all spread out all over Europe. So that's quite a nice thing in my view. Let me share something else here. So I guess now we would say this kind of initial impulse to research became being a innovation studio or design and innovation studio. Here's a few pictures, I guess, from the life itself. That's the place I'm at now. Since Brexit, we are all over Europe, but 2 headquarters in Berlin and in London, but we also have people in all these cities, and we're about 25 artists and designers, and we're actually organized in 4 different teams. I mean, sometimes it's all mixed up. It's really depending on the project, but there's also a lot of individuality and like different creative leads and different creative directors have different preferences and skills. And here's some pictures from various cooking events. That's it. That's Feel in a nutshell.
Okay, so for those who are just tuning in right now, so we're talking with Phil, and you have a trailer around that we wanted to play back, and I think it will be a great moment to check it out and to see where you guys have been up to in the last years.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Stop.
But that's so hot. But not to both. But God, I did.